In 1324, a man left West Africa with so much gold that he destroyed every economy he visited. His name was Mansa Musa. He's the richest person who ever lived. Not Elon Musk, not Jeff Bezos, not anyone you've heard of. This 14th century African king had between 400 billion and 600 billion in today's money. Modern economists can't even calculate his actual wealth. But here's the crazy part. He didn't hoard it. He spent it all on one trip, and he crashed the Mediterranean economy for a decade. This is how one man's generosity broke the world. Mansa Musa ruled the Mali Empire from 1312 to 1337. Mali was massive, bigger than Western Europe. It covered parts of modern-day Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, and Mauritania. The empire controlled the trans-Saharan trade routes. Gold, salt, copper, ivory, everything valuable passed through Mali. But gold was the real money. Mali produced half the world's gold supply in the 14th century. Half! The mines in Bambouk and Bure supplied gold for European and Middle Eastern currencies. Mansa Musa controlled it all. But Musa was deeply religious, a devout Muslim. In Islam, every Muslim should make one pilgrimage to Mecca if they can. It's called the Hajj. In 1324, Musa decided it was time, and he didn't travel light. 60,000 people joined his caravan. That's not a pilgrimage, that's a moving city. 12,000 personal slaves, each carrying 4 pounds of gold bars. That's 48,000 pounds of gold just carried by slaves. 80 camels, each loaded with 50 to 300 pounds of gold dust. Heralds in silk carrying gold staffs, officials, soldiers, merchants, musicians, and Musa in the middle of it all. The journey was 4,000 miles, over a year of travel, through the Sahara, across North Africa, through Egypt, into Arabia. At every stop, Musa spent money. Not carefully, he just gave it away. They reached Cairo in July 1324. We have records from Arab scholars who saw him. A historian named al-Umari visited Cairo 12 years later. He interviewed eyewitnesses. Here's what they said. Mansa Musa brought more gold than Cairo had ever seen. He gave gold to everyone, poor people, scholars, officials, religious leaders. He bought supplies and paid absurd prices, not because he was cheated. He just didn't care about cost. He gave the Sultan of Egypt 50,000 dinars as a gift. He built a mosque every Friday wherever he stopped for prayer. He was so generous that something unprecedented happened. Gold became worthless in Cairo. Basic economics. Flood the market, value drops. Musa brought so much gold that he caused massive inflation. Prices skyrocketed overnight. Gold was suddenly worth less. People's savings lost value instantly. According to al-Umari, Cairo's economy took 12 years to recover. 12 years. One man spending money for a few weeks caused a decade of economic chaos. The same thing happened in Medina, in Mecca. Every city experienced gold-induced inflation. But here's the fascinating part. On his way back, Musa realized what he'd done to Cairo. He felt bad about it. So he did something almost no ruler has ever done. He took out a loan. At high interest rates, Musa borrowed gold from Egyptian lenders. He tried to take gold out of circulation to stabilize the value. Think about that. The richest man in the world borrowed money to fix an economic crisis he caused by being too generous. It didn't fully work. The damage was done. But the gesture tells you who Mansa Musa was. The pilgrimage wasn't just about religion. It was brilliant political theater. Before Musa's journey, most of the Islamic world barely knew Mali existed. West Africa was distant and mysterious. After the pilgrimage, Mali was famous. In 1375, a Spanish map called the Catalan Atlas showed West Africa in detail for the first time. Right in the middle sits a king on a throne holding a gold nugget. That's Mansa Musa. The caption reads, "This Negro lord is called Musa Mali. So abundant is the gold in his country that he is the richest and most noble king in all the land." His journey transformed how Africa was viewed. Traders came, scholars came, Mali became a center of Islamic learning. Musa brought back architects and scholars. He built the great mosque of Timbuktu and Sankore University. Sankore became one of the most important centers of learning in the Islamic world. Timbuktu became synonymous with wealth and knowledge. It had libraries with hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law. While Europe struggled through the Middle Ages, Timbuktu was a cosmopolitan hub. Scholars from across Africa and the Middle East studied there, all built on gold wealth and Musa's vision. But here's what's interesting. Despite being the richest person ever, we don't know much about Musa personally. We know he was devout, generous to the point of economic disruption. He valued education, but details of his personality, his daily life, exact birth and death dates, mostly lost. What we know comes from Arab scholars and West African griots. Griots are storytellers who pass down history through generations. And that tells you something about African history. So much was never written down or was lost during colonization. Timbuktu's libraries were partially destroyed, oral histories disrupted, entire civilizations erased. But Mansa Musa's story survived. You can't hide the man who broke the Mediterranean economy with generosity. When Musa died in 1337, Mali was at its peak. His legacy lived through the institutions he built. But empires don't last forever. Within a century, Mali's power declined. Internal conflicts, succession disputes, the rise of the Songhai Empire. By the time Europeans arrived centuries later, Mali's golden age had faded in the West. But the gold remained, and that's what brought the colonizers. Here's what strikes me most. This 14th century African king controlled more wealth than anyone in history. He built universities, mosques, libraries. He sponsored scholars and artists. He put his empire on the world map. And yet, his story has been largely forgotten. You can go through entire Western education and never hear his name. But he was richer than Bezos, Musk, and Gates combined. He built institutions rivaling anything in Europe at the time. He crashed economies just by visiting. That's the power of narrative. Who tells history? Who gets erased? Mansa Musa's story reminds us that Africa has always been central to world history. Medieval gold came from West Africa. Timbuktu's knowledge shaped Islamic scholarship. But you have to look for these stories. They're not in mainstream history books. The richest person ever was an African king who gave away so much gold he broke the economy, and most people have never heard of him. If you want more stories like this, African kings, queens, empires that changed the world but got buried, subscribe to Echoes of Africa. These stories deserve to be told and remembered.